socks and sandals and all. I want to be the kind of dad that wears socks and sandals.
You're halfway there.
This is true. Oh, now I just get to listen.
Okay. I'm going to tell you the story of the Bennington Triangle. Caitlin just did the face where like, it's that meme of that guy going, huh? Like he tilts his head.
Have you seen the meme of last sidetrack of I think it's like a wrestler or something who's like trying so hard. Like it almost looks like he's pooping and there's all the veins in his head. Someone photoshopped him like hiding behind a couch and you can only see his head and it says toddlers hiding while they're pooping.
That's absolutely true.
Carry on.
Okay. My sources are a show called Top Mysteries. It was a YouTube channel show. Legends of America. An article by Maggie Clendenin for Ranker. Wikipedia, an article by Renee Chandler for Listverse. And an article by Ted Kammerer for All That's Interesting. There is an area, which I never heard of, in southwest Vermont known as the Bennington Triangle.
Oh.
For its bizarre history of disappearances.
Do you know there's also a triangle in Ireland with crazy disappearances?
And there's one in geometry where I disappeared from my homework.
That was stupid.
I didn't do it. But no, I did not know that. There was another triangle too. I can't remember.
When you were a kid, did you think the Bermuda Triangle would be a bigger deal than it is?
Yes. I thought when they told us about that, I thought that was something we needed to have on our radar kind of at all times.
Oh, right. Like one day we were going to get stuck. Like it was this big.
Yeah. Like we needed to just be aware that was a thing. Don't go there. And we're like, okay, so I got to keep up tabs.
Right. It was talked like.
No, that makes me
like if your food tastes like almonds, don't eat it. If you go near the Bermuda Triangle, you will die.
Yeah. Well, they didn't teach me if my food tastes like almonds, don't eat it. They weren't like teaching me about being poisoned, which would have been more useful.
I taught myself that. But yeah, it would have been more useful.
So it's in Vermont, and it has a history of disappearances, strange happenings that date back to the 1500s and before.
What?
Yes. The Algonquian Native Americans lived in this area. And the Algonquians lived all over eastern Canada and then chunks of modern-day northeast U.S. and like a little bit in the Midwest too. So they lived in this area. This tribe, as well as other tribes around the area, believed that this area was cursed. Their legends warned of a stone that existed on the land. They called it an enchanted stone that would sort of open up a portal and suck you in. Outlander much?
I was just thinking of that.
Like when I was reading about that, I'm like, yo, that's literally Outlander. Ugh. Okay. So in the legends, this stone is malevolent.
Do you believe in time travel?
I believe that there are different dimensions.
Parallel universes?
And universe and stuff happening at the same time, but that ours doesn't have the ability to move away from ours, but that doesn't mean others don't. We're not there yet, or we may never be able to do that, but I think it exists somewhere. Have you seen the recent trending Google search that people are looking up? I hope parallel universe me is doing okay.
Wait, there would be another us in a parallel universe?
Well, that's one theory, is that we exist in every universe. There's also a theory that anything you can imagine has happened somewhere. So, for example, if you can imagine yourself, 100 mini versions of yourself in a giant martini glass, like that exists somewhere. Isn't that creepy to think about? Anything you can imagine is in a universe somewhere, and that's why we can think about it.
I wake up tomorrow with $1 million in my bank account.
It won't be in this universe. I mean, maybe.
Tell your stupid story.
Okay, so like this Outlander rock. So they believe that the stone is malevolent. All of their histories and legends and religions say that. So it's not just taking you to a way cooler dimension with attractive Scottish men or anything. The Algonquian also said that this area was cursed by the four winds, whose weather was super erratic. And plants in this area grow at weird angles because the winds come from every direction, which is unusual. So the area also can look a little creepy. This area eventually became the location of a town called Glastonbury, which is now a ghost town. Glastonbury was created in 1761. But 20 years later, only 6 families lived in these rocky, misty woods. So it was a very, very small little town. In fact, 10 years later, by 1800, none of the 6 original families were there anymore. People claim it's because of the difficult geography, that they maybe moved out, but they kind of just disappeared. So 8 new families moved there. But again, they only lasted 10 years and either left or something. And then 5 of those families were also gone. So they said it was a hard place to live. Glastonbury drew in a lot of transient workers because it was a hard labor-driven town with tons of logging and charcoal development. At this time, like, weird things started happening where there was some violent stuff, and then there's some other kind of strange stuff too with like the idea of like a monster maybe. But a worker there, a sawmill worker, bludgeoned a coworker to death. And then there was also this transient man who lived in a cave in the area. And he would flash women as they came by and like wave a gun at them. And then the sawmill worker, this was all at the same time. Like
Louis C.K.?
Oh, no. The sawmill worker like was sent to an asylum because he bludgeoned someone, but he escaped and they thought he was in the area. Like it was just
didn't mean that guy, I meant the flasher.
Yeah. It was just like a creepy area. So this town is like lives for a long time. In 1987, a huge flood wiped out their railway system, which was like the only way to get products and like things in and out of town. And so by 1900, I meant 1887, I'm sorry. By 1900, there were only a few hundred people in Glastonbury. And then by 1937, the population again dwindled and it kind of became a ghost town. So the town itself lived for about 170 years. And when I read that, I was like, that's not very long. But then I remembered that Phoenix was only settled in like 1867. So we're younger than Glastonbury was when it ended. It's so weird to think about towns like that. They're like this little town that wasn't a town very long.
The state of Alaska is only, it had its 50th birthday when I was still living there. Like Alaska's not an old state. Isn't that weird?
I know. It's weird to think about.
Our grandparents are older than the state of Alaska.
It's so weird. Yeah, this town was around longer than Phoenix has been. However, like 2 people still live there, but it's essentially a ghost town. So the Bennington Triangle was always home to strange things, like potential Bigfoot type sightings. Because of the geography, there were like bright purple lightning storms all the time, and stories of large unhuman footprints were found often.
Louis C.K.?
It has to be him. They were found once outside of a stagecoach, and people just thought it was the Bennington monster, who allegedly attacked this stagecoach during one of the very storms. So it was a pitch black night in the early 1800s near Glastonbury, and a stagecoach full of passengers had to quickly stop due to the bumpy road being washed out. It was an area that flooded a lot. Their coach was attacked by a large creature with strange large footprints. They were seen. They also said that the animal had 2 eyes, was large, hairy, and stood on 2 legs. This area was infamous already in the 1700s and the 1800s for people disappearing. So dozens of people have been reported missing in the Bennington Triangle. And the 1940s had a series of disappearances that left the surrounding area shook. So in 1943, a man named Carol Herrick was out hunting in the Bennington Triangle. And during this hunting trip, he just disappeared. His body was found after 3 days of searching, and he had, quote, been squeezed to death. Whatever that would look like or mean. I'm laughing because of Caitlin's face. She did the jaw drop, like, what?
I just got really sweaty again. What?
That's how they described it.
We're not Capri Suns. Like, what? What the fuck? I was not prepared for that.
So there were also those large footprints all around him, the weird Bennington monster footprints.
I'm not blaming that on Louis C.K. He doesn't deserve that.
No, he's not quite there. So the next person reported missing.
Bill Cosby.
Just name out awful people. I'm telling all my kids that was Harvey Weinstein. So the next person reported missing in the Bennington Triangle was Mitty Rivers for the same reason. He was out hunting. In November of 1945, so only a couple years later, Mitty was leading a group of hunters on a trip. He was a skilled mountain man, and he understood the area well, and he liked to lead groups of hunters there on trips and stuff. So he was leading the group back to their campsite for the evening, and he went ahead of the group because they assumed he just wanted to get there faster or whatever. And when the group got to camp, he wasn't there, even though he was ahead of them. They weren't actually concerned because Mitty was super skilled. And so they're like, oh, he's probably just out like doing woodsman stuff. But then he didn't show up, and they started getting concerned because he hadn't taken any belongings with him. So they're like, okay, that's like, he doesn't
he wouldn't survive out there. Yeah.
300 community members and the U.S. Army looked for him in the Bennington Triangle for 8 days. And the only thing they ever found was a single rifle cartridge that matched his near a river. That's all that was found.
It's like maybe he was shooting something that was coming after him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Sarah.
But like, kudos to the search party though, because they found a freaking cartridge.
Right. A needle
like,
in a haystack.
That's insane. Yeah. Oh, and the ground that they found it on was undisturbed. Like, it didn't look like there was like any fight or anything like that. It was just that. So they never ever found a trace of Mitty at all. So the very next year in 1946, college student Paula Weldon went for a hike in the Bennington Triangle. It was December 1st, and she had on jeans and a red jacket, and many witnesses saw her and remembered her bright red jacket and even gave her directions because she was like really friendly and lived in the town for college. Other people were also hiking that day and recall seeing her bright red jacket. It was like a pretty busy day out on the trails. However, Paula didn't show up for her classes the next morning, so a 1,000-person search began. Where did they get 1,000 people?
3 whole towns.
I know. So an elderly couple came forward and said that they were about 100 yards behind her hiking for a long time. And she turned a corner because it's the woods and there's, corners and stuff. Just explain you how that works.
Mansplain the woods to us. Thank you, Sarah.
It's the woods.
There's turns.
There's turns.
There's trees. there's leaves. Sometimes there's branches on the ground.
All right.
Why am I this way?
Why am I this way? So when they got to that corner that she had turned on, they said that she was like just not there anymore, like on the path.
Stories where people just vanish out of thin air.
I know.
Give me the creeps like nothing else. Like that case you did recently.
Sam Sayers.
Yes.
Where there's just nothing.
I just can't. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. My body can't deal with it.
Well, and this is crazy too because no one heard screaming or anything. She just wasn't on the trail anymore. I mean,
that's like
the weird stone thing. I'm like, maybe
Outlander.
So exactly.
This episode is called Caitlin Has Tourette's, and she only yells out books and celebrity names.
Caitlin yells out book titles. Exactly 3 years later to the day that she disappeared, veteran James Tedford went missing. And this one's crazier. On December 1st of 1949 in the Bennington Triangle, James was on a bus passing through Bennington County when he disappeared. He disappeared on a bus. Okay.
Wait, what?
On this bus, there were 14 passengers. His stop was in Bennington, and he told the driver, like, hey, my stop's Bennington, because it's the 40s and they like do stops for people.
Get to the point. How did he disappear on a bus?
They got to the stop in Bennington for James to get off the bus, and he didn't get off the bus because he wasn't there, but all of his luggage was. Okay. Everyone on the bus was interviewed. No, you can look this up.
But he was there before.
No one saw anything weird. No one remembered him getting off the bus at all.
What?
They stopped at his stop and his luggage was in a seat and he wasn't on the bus.
What?
I read so many articles and that's all the information there is. It's like
What?
Yeah, he must have gotten off on another stop. People say like what else? But nobody saw him get up. But they remember seeing him reading and seeing him just like acting normal and sitting there in his seat. And then all of a sudden when it was his stop, he didn't get off because he wasn't on.
He was never found again. Like
never seen again. And he was like going to visit family and stuff. Like, yeah.
What?
Yes. He just disappeared in the Bennington Triangle. Yeah, look him up. James Tedford. The next year, and that was to the day when Paula just vanished.
Okay, I believe this type of shit. So you're fucking with my sleep schedule, Sarah. Thank you.
I'm willing to do that for our listeners. Apparently, Caitlin. So the next year in 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson was playing in the cab of his mom's pickup truck while she left to tend to their pigs really quick. They had like pigs on a farm that they drove over to. This was in the Bennington Triangle. She came back immediately and Paul was not in the cab. So she started calling his name, looking for him, being like, he must have just ran off to play. Nothing. So she immediately went to police. Police brought in bloodhounds who did actually pick up his scent and they followed it into the Glastonbury mountain area. But at the crossroads, lost the scent completely. The dogs just were like, nothing there. It turns out that Paul had been telling his dad how he wanted to visit the mountains for days leading up to this, which the dad said was unusual. 16 days later, 53-year-old Frida Langer was camping in the Bennington Triangle. Frida and her cousin Herbert went to go on a hike during their trip, and their family stayed back at the campsite while they decided to go together. When they were literally like 100 yards from the campsite, Frida apparently fell in a stream somehow and she got soaked. And so Herbert was like, go get some like warm clothes and dry clothes and we'll keep going on the walk. And so she was like, just stay right here and I'll be right back. I'm just going to go run and change. They were 100 yards from the campsite. Herbert was waiting patiently at first, but he was like, this is taking way too long. Like maybe she forgot or decided not to come. So he went back too. And their family said that she hadn't come back to the campsite. He was 100 yards away. Again, nobody heard anything, and she just didn't show up.
That's what, like a football field?
Yeah, I think. It's not that far, though. And you think you'd hear a scream.
There's 10 yards between the lines. I would guess there'd be like 10.
It can't be that far.
10. How big is a football field?
Let's look it up. People at home are so mad about this.
A football field is 120 yards. The playing field is 100 yards. Look who's